It's Wednesday. We are wizards. It is time for our weekly cult meeting, Wizard Wednesday. Channeling in from the
Hello.
Quantum Downs, this is Elf.
And Dota.
And Bear.
And we are just exclamation point magic. We've got a special guest coming on today. I'm not sure if he's here yet, but we will sit tight until he gets here. But I just wanted to let everybody know, if you're not aware, we actually live in a massive multi real life role playing game, or as some people call it, an MMRLRPG. Much of our playtime is devoted to the grind. And this daily grind is where we hone our core skills. But mixed into that routine grind, we start getting bold. We start getting adventurous and creative. The grind becomes a quest, and it opens new doors and takes us into new territory, into places we once feared. And no matter what mysteries or ferocious beasts lie beyond those doors, we put our runes on those doors, we unlock them, and we face the challenge head on. And before long, our deeds and our magic and our creativity, it starts to show results. And we level up. And after enough leveling up, our profiles start to rise. And the pages of our book are no longer empty, they have history written on them. And we become more than what we were, we become legendary. And so, at some point during this Wizard Wednesday, I want to welcome a very special guest, a man who is no stranger to the grind. And when he gets here, I'll tell you his name. So, Donut Bear, do you know where our special guest is?
He's on his
I'm,
way.
I'm texting with him right
He's
now.
grinding.
I resent him the
Okay,
link.
yeah, no, it's
So
no problem. You know what? Let's
Well,
let's
yeah, we got plenty of other things to talk about.
exactly.
So
No,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, Dota. There's another amazing thing happening right now. Our first beast just finished the auction. Hey, there's our first beast right there. Mr. Ryan Zur with the new PFP, the Chaos Chimera.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
Beast came home.
yeah. How's it
Absolutely
feel to be
had
the
to.
owner of a legendary beast?
Absolutely fantastic.
Congrats.
I can't believe we got it that low, and we're absolutely ecstatic to bring it home and pair it with the Sacred Keymaster.
Oh, it's a perfect combo.
Yeah. It feels like natural, like a man and his beast, right?
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
So great.
So yeah, it's been great, and we're actually looking to. We're looking forward to lots of people in the community owning different ones here, and we may pick up maybe one more in a very special auction that will be announced here in the next couple of weeks for a really amazing cause. But we'll save that. I think there's enough like craziness for one day, so we'll save that for another day. But we're definitely not going to completely like try to whale out this community and buy and consolidate all the beasts for ourselves. So we're super stoked to get this one, and we're super stoked for lots of other people here who are so dedicated to this community to get some as well.
Right on, right on. Yeah, well, let's maybe talk about beasts later today. But our special guest, Mr. Alexis Ohanian, has just joined. Welcome to Wizard Wednesday, Alexis.
Howdy. Thanks for having me. I was way too confident in my ability to find this group chat, so thanks for your patience. This Twitter space was not as easy to find as I thought, so happy to be here. It's going to sound very weird, but the Chimera was always one of my favorite mythological creatures.
Same.
I'm getting really. This is a deep cut. Monsters in My Pocket.
Yes.
Which was the red Chimera first edition was, for whatever reason, my absolute favorite one. Anyway, that's where I first learned about it. And I was like, wait, what is this creature that's part lion and goat and snake of a tail of a snake,
Dude.
and fire and wings of an eagle or some nonsense? I mean, it was. I don't know. For whatever reason, the Chimera really just slapped for me. So seeing the drop, the announcement today was pretty fun.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm gonna tweet it for the youngins who don't, because I've just outed myself as old. Oh, there's one on eBay right now. It just sold for $3. Hold on, I can get another one. Here's one for $9. I'm totally buying it. Oh my god.
Collecting is happening in real time.
I actually still have my Chimera monster in my pocket, and we were talking to a merch guy the other day, and I showed him. I was like,
when are we getting the monster in my pocket?
Dude. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right, I've just ordered mine.
I think that sounds like a pretty cool derivative project, by the way.
Right?
Someone in the community wanted to try that for that.
Beast in my
pocket.
We're gonna need
Sounds
that.
dope.
Yeah. Put them in water and they grow to 20 times their size.
That's so great.
Fun fact. I was going to say, fun fact, I used to actually grow these quite a bit when I was a kid and scare my little sister with them.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, all those old toys are the best. But yeah, so Alexis, we got a bunch of things we want to talk about with you. I don't know, Dota, do you want to start, or I've got some questions. I think our community has questions.
See what I did there?
Oh yeah, yeah. Hello. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we'd love to hear. You're well known for starting Reddit and so many other things, but I think one of the things kind of the Wizards would love to hear about is just some of the games that you played like early on. You talked about in your video this morning you played like Final Fantasy, and then I know that you were involved with Skyweaver and some of those the games. I just love to hear about, like, I don't know, just some of the things that you love in the space.
Well, you saw in the launch video or the announcement video this morning, I grew up playing video games like a lot of folks. I've got my graded Final Fantasy 1 and sealed NES. I mean, it wasn't mine, when I was a kid. That one was very much open to be used. But the first time I played Final Fantasy, I just understood I saw this entirely new world of gaming. I think like a lot of folks. And it continued to be there. I played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. I played Magic the Gathering quite a bit. I also played Spellfire, which was the weird D&D knockoff of Magic the Gathering, but with D&D IP. And I read all the Dragonlance books. Like I was very much into a lot of the lore surrounding the broader like RPG, not even a universe, but whatever that world. But with video games in particular, it just hit in a different way. And I found myself in EverQuest pretty early throughout middle school and high school, and then WoW by the end of high school and throughout college. And then, like I said, I had to quit playing WoW because I hit the level cap, which back then was 60, and I focused on my real life MMORPG, which was being an entrepreneur and founding Reddit. So, like the genre is something I'm nostalgic about. The genre is something I am just quite smitten with. And look, let's face it. It really set a foundation for so many other games. And I don't want to be the old man here saying, well, like kids today don't realize, but it's true. I mean, at its core, the role-playing game, in particular, the sort of Japanese JRPG style that Final Fantasy really pioneered in such an amazing way, the storytelling, the artistry, I mean, it's special. And the ripple effect still continues. So, I was lucky to be an early investor in Coinbase back in 2012 in the seed round, and I was at that point just interested because Bitcoin seemed interesting, and there were lots of people on Reddit who really liked it. So that was a good proxy for maybe something could happen here. But I got crypto pilled really in earnest maybe 3 or 4 years ago, And one of the first things that did it was seeding a company called Skyweaver. Well, the company's called Horizon, makers of a trading card game called Skyweaver, an on-chain one. And when we first saw it, it was there was nothing. There was just some text on a screen for what could be, but the metaphor just absolutely slapped, because I realized, there were a lot of projects that were still seeking. They were a technology in need of a purpose. They were you can decentralize the game, and that's cool, but it wasn't enough, and it's hard enough to build a great game. The trading card game explanation just resonated, because look, many of us, we grew up playing games where we owned our in-game assets. Right? We played Magic the Gathering, we owned our cards. It would have been absurd if you had to give your cards back at the end of every day to Wizards of the Coast.
Right.
And that's, again, a foundational part of gaming. So I wrote this blog post like 3 years ago that still gets me, I get so much hate for it from this contingent of gamers who are just blindly against anything related to Web3 or any of this underlying technology. But it's one of my favorites to bring back up, because there is something really interesting about what this technology can now unlock because of a simple thing like ownership. And so, yeah, it was never possible to really imagine Final Fantasy any other way than the way that we had it. But sure enough, a whole lot of us started, playing the massively multiplayer versions of it a decade later, and we can now never unsee it. And I think we're approaching that as well with many different types of entertainment and things built on top of Web3, and it'll come in the next few years. And like I said, I was looking for something that would resonate with this fundamental part of gaming that so many of us grew up with. And as soon as I first saw the very 8-bit inspired artwork, I just thought, okay, all right, these folks get me. And once I saw what was cooking in the community, I thought, all right, look, there's a lot of work to do, no doubt. Making a great game is very, very, very hard. But here are the raw materials of taste, of team, and of community, that sort of minimum viable community that I'm fond of reminding folks about, that makes this worth digging into and exploring more. And we got to conviction and invested a few bucks, and we're excited to help be a part of this. It's a wild world that
I
you
love, there's so much beautiful work in those early games. So for me, I actually learned how to program, like doing MUDs back in the day. So
I
to
never
pull my
played
own
MUDs.
grandpa.
I have
To pull
no,
my
I have no understanding how you all got by with that.
So they were purely text based, right? So they're
Text, yeah.
pure text, and you say like walk to the east, right? And you just pick like almost like King's Quest, early King's Quest, but without the
I
pictures.
hope no more. Yeah,
And one of the things that they would do, even in those days, the code was open source. And
there you
so it
go.
was a lot like crypto in that way, where you had this like Cambrian
Mm.
explosion of like super interesting games and the mechanics and the game space moving forward really quickly, because you had this sort of the same right to exit that it felt like we missed out on in video games like since then until now, really.
That's a very good point. Yeah, and it makes sense that these are the areas that are going to get explored first, because so many of the builders, so many of us, we just grew up playing these games, and so we're going to build what we know and what we loved. And then frankly, right, they're kind of like their own Lego pieces, right? This starts getting a little meta, but the beauties, if we go back to tabletop role playing games, was the fact that Gygax and others created the framework that let other people, that is dungeon masters, actually go further and create the worlds and create the adventures and storytelling. Just say, look, here are the basic pieces, here are the Legos, get your die, and get some figurines if you want to, get some graph paper, and then just go build. And people learned from one another, but it was pretty old school and pretty slow, because we weren't all connected online talking all the damn time. But that rate of innovation that I think can take hold here is going to really impress folks with just really awesome gaming experiences, great community building.
One of the
how do you feel about how do you feel about how incentivization adds this sort of rocket fuel to this iteration of it, because you have like provable scarcity, because you have Metcalfe's law applied to to anybody around the world can buy these and enter the game at any given time, and even replace their job with it, and like really go down the rabbit hole even one extra layer. Like, you know, being so experienced in the, like, the stores of value and the culture components of these games in the past, how do you feel like this this wave is different or accelerated?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns here, like, because we have not seen anything like this. Even these, what the blockchain does as this global distributed ledger is it has now created the database that we can all peer into, that we can all consider a sort of source of truth, and that's going to unlock new behaviors. And so I watched for 15 years, 16 years, every product that I was designing or shipping for Reddit to incentivize communities and individuals to just do dope stuff was limited because it could just be upvotes. It was internet points. It didn't really mean anything. And yet, I saw amazing communities get formed. I saw people put in so many great hours to do great work for total strangers, to do delightful things, to do funny things, to come together. And I'm convinced that if you can align the incentives properly and give people the reward, not just for being creators, which is obviously a really important part of the ecosystem, but being early and right to join the community actually has always had value that we've never been able to reward people for. Like, you've seen, like, as a species, we've come up with proxies, right? Like having even having a well-graded copy of an early edition of Final Fantasy, like, it's partially because it's art, it's partially because it's nostalgia. Like, it makes me feel good just to look at it. And at the time, because I remember all the great memories spent. And I think there is, as a species, we've created proxies for it, and so now I can have a graded copy of Final Fantasy, but like it's been an ugly hack in many ways. And what this technology now enables is to say, look, if you were there and you were early and you were right, you have something to really show for it that is digital, and it's has all the advantages of being digital, but still has the scarcity and still has a true ownership that the analog world historically had. And that's lots of lots of upside there. There's lots of reasons to like that and be excited by it. And I think what it also means for game developers, which is another one of these unknowns, is that your incentives are fundamentally different in building and then sustaining this business, right? Think of all of the games historically. I mean, there's probably some servers still running EverQuest. I don't know. I know I didn't even play EverQuest 2. That was kind of I think a train wreck. But like, there have rarely been incentives for the producers of these games to maintain legacy IP that still has a passionate user base, because they need to move on to the next big thing because it's a hits-driven business, et cetera, et cetera. This won't be the case for all, but for the really good ones, I think this changes the dynamic of how teams are incentivized to support and evolve games over time. Because if you have that core audience and you're able to, sustainably show that they're very interested and very passionate, that has value. And historically, the market has never rewarded it, and now I think it will, which means developers are more incentivized to do things that are in the long-term greedy best interests of their community and them, which aligns a lot more often than people realize. Whereas traditionally, game developers, and painting in broad strokes here, they're incentivized to do things that are more short-term greedy and not necessarily in the long-term best interests of gamers. And you can look at plenty of examples of that. And that's the part I don't know how it will play out, but my instincts are telling me that teams that are thinking about the long-term benefits of what they're building, teams that are thinking about what they're doing, not just as a quote-unquote business, but also as almost like a head of state. Like, you're not just, I used to say this all the time at Reddit, like, I wasn't just being a CEO, it was also being a head of state. And you have to balance those two things in basically every Web3 project now. it's this understanding that, like, yes, there are fundamentals to the business. You need to run well. You need to under promise, over deliver. You need to ship. You need to do all that stuff. Team building, all of that. And you have a community that you really need to bring on the ride with you and keep motivated and keep incentivized. And it's delicate. It's a lot more like being a head of state than it is a traditional CEO who's historically been able to, put their head in the sand. And I think it's a good thing for everyone that's shifted.
I think
go ahead.
I get ranked.
To me, one of the most fun things about this is, at least for our project, is thinking about the parallels between building up a character in an RPG and building up a digital identity on Web3. You mentioned early on how you stopped playing Warcraft when you hit level 60 because you basically had to. But with Web3, you can continue leveling up your entire life and beyond. And you carry that progress with you everywhere you go on Web3. And you bounce from one like ecosystem to another, and you're the same character getting stronger and stronger and stronger endlessly. And I just think that's a really fun idea. Like one example I bring up a lot is, like, think about Leroy Jenkins and
Leroy.
Exactly.
In real life, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, and so, like, imagine if Leroy could like keep being Leroy wherever he went on these digital platforms. I think that's what we have ahead of us now.
Yeah.
I also think that, like, something you bring up and that is a new dynamic in developing games is, like, it is that community factor, right? It's not just about the incentive structure that people are gonna be able to create NFTs and sell them on third party platforms, or just the infinite game loops that keep people coming back. It's like we spend so much time with Bisonic trying to integrate all of the pillars of strength that we've built within our community in the project, and injecting that into the ethos of the game. And it's been interesting. And like you said, we don't know how it's going to go, but it is absolutely core and feels like a new sort of element that you have to bake into these games. And it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
I agree. And this is the kind of opportunity where everything is going to get rebuilt and reimagined. We have a basic framework for one way to do it, Web 2 or the sort of the previous years of gaming. And like, I would look to user experience. That is almost always where you're going to win. If you're creating something that, again, is a long-term great user experience, that's probably what's going to win out. And if you look at, like, Leroy definitely didn't get to, Blizzard was not trying to let Leroy continue that, like, identity and rep outside of the platform. But plenty of places showed up to be this kind of black market, or like eBay is a great example of where, despite it being against the rules and the policies, folks would still auction their accounts, right? It was a very illiquid marketplace. It was technically, I don't know if illegal is the right word, it was against the terms of service, and people still did it. So what is that telling us? Like, there is real value there that people sought out. And even though the user experience was terrible, they still did it. And that makes me think, well, great, we make the experience delightful, and a whole hell of a lot more people are going to jump to it. And y'all, we're in this weird stage where we're talking about technologies like NFTs and blockchains and things that the average person doesn't know about, doesn't care about, in the same way that no one is out here 15, 20 years ago talking about what a big deal hypertext transfer protocols would be. And to this day, right, the average person doesn't have a clue. They don't need to. They just need to know they go to a website and it works. And that is how I think about this underlying technology. Again, it's going to come back down to a user experience, to creating things that feel familiar to folks. I mean, right now, everyone on this Twitter space is an early adopter. Congratulations, you're early. This is, I am so unsure of the micro things that are going to play out. Like that is going to come back to human creativity, right? Even on, I remember building my first website on GeoCities. It was a Quake 2 fan page, and I found some really dope GIFs of like a railgun spinning in a circle and like a rocket launcher. Had all my favorite weapons. Like, this was my favorite map, and I saw this page counter at the bottom, and I thought it was. I didn't realize it was just a page view, not like unique visitors. So I got really excited until I realized that it just wasn't actually a. it was not hundreds of
It's just you
thousands of people
refreshing
visiting
the
my page.
counter. Yeah.
Exactly, but I really, it put into motion this idea of like, oh, cool, and this is like Web 1. Like, I can create things on the internet that anyone in the world can see. Now, I was probably, let's see, it was the maybe 98, 97. I don't know, let's say 97, 98. So in 2005, call it 10 years, let's say it was 10 years later, that same dorky kid who was like, look, it's a Quake 2 fan page I just made. Like, I'm sitting there designing upvotes and downvotes and comments, and that same person, I never could have imagined any of the things I ended up designing even just 10 years later for Reddit, because this was a brand new medium that I was still exploring. And so we're still at that stage where we don't like we are just figuring out how to use this really basic clay to create something of utility. And so like I'm sitting here knowing I can't predict the specific stuff that is to come. But what I'm sure of is that delightful user experiences, really robust and nurtured communities, those are the ways to creating long-term amazing stuff. And something on a micro decision, a really tactical decision that you all make at 2 a.m. to ship blah blah blah. No spoilers. That's, when you announce that to the community and then you see the response from it and you realize, okay, no, this is the momentum, this is the gameplay we need, this is the mechanic, this is the whatever. That's the stuff that is going to push all of us forward, because it'll make the whole industry, of Web3 gaming, and maybe frankly all of gaming, kind of look up and say, okay, that was dope. All right, I see what they did there. This is clever. This is novel. We keep moving forward, because even though we've seen a whole generation of games developed, this is a really just foundationally different technology to be building on. And that's the exciting part, is there's no one who can actually predict where it goes. We just got to make some great user experiences, great communities, and great Legos.
Oh, when you talk about this idea of like being a heads of state, that's really interesting, right? Because you're not able to just tell your community, what to do and how to do it. You sort of like set in place policies, and when you have this like World of Warcraft situation where people are like selling gold on eBay or characters on eBay, we get this opportunity with crypto to kind of integrate that into the platform, right? We won't be fighting that; we'll be encouraging it. But at the same time, what happens is you risk maybe like a hyper capitalization of the game, and what we have now with the cult is this sort of like tight knit group of people who like, scratch each other's back, right? People are giving wizards away to one another even now. And like, we know each other's names and we know like who each other's characters are. What is some of the advice that you might have for us as we have this growing community? And we're like, we have this gift economy now, and we're moving into like a much broader world. Like, what are some of the? Do you have any advice from like the experiments you tried at Reddit, or from like scaling a community to like keep that kind of gift economy feel as you move into something that becomes more like systematized?
Yeah, and this is something I wish I'd done a better job productizing. So I left Reddit in 2010, started in 05, sold it in 06, left in 2010, came back in 2014. During the 4 or 5 year intermission, like the product really froze in time. So there was a lot of tech debt and stuff to overcome. And there's still stuff that I just wish I'd done differently, wish I'd shipped or what have you. But one of the North Stars for me came very early. And so Drew Curtis of Fark is a buddy of mine, and I remember talking to him one night over beers, and this is like 2007. This is early days, and I was complaining about how much I hated advertising as a business model. I was just like, dude, I don't think advertising is going to work. It's not sustainable. We also weren't making very much money off of it because advertisers wanted like big ad space, especially back then, and we just wouldn't give it to them. So admittedly, I was bitter because I was like, we're not making any money on it, and it's a bad user experience. Like, this can't be the way. And he looks at me and says, hey, dude, we made this thing called Total Fark. And I forget how much it was. It was $10 a month subscription. And as long as you, or as long as you have it, you get access to like a private forum, and you get this little badge next to your name that shows that you're like a special member. So whenever you comment, people are like, oh, they've got total FARC. And he tells me this, I'm like, damn, that's a pretty good idea. And so immediately now you're starting to see where Reddit Gold came from. But the smartest thing he said was, and make sure you let people gift it to one another, because that is really going to unlock something big. And I thought, okay, all right, that's a good idea. And they saw the same thing at FARC. They initially launched where you could just buy it for yourself, but once they let people gift it, it unlocked a massive revenue boost. So fast forward, Reddit launches Reddit Gold, and then I left, and things kind of stagnated. But I think we have since resurrected it in ways. Now, obviously, Twitch has blazed the trail for everything from bits to all this stuff seems very boring and tired. But I swear, in 2006, it was a pretty revolutionary novel concept, and I really think there's some equivalent for it in Web3, where you already have this culture within the Wizards community, which is great. At some point, though, it's going to become prohibitive to be that generous with Wizards. So what are the ways that you create a kind of release valve that incentivizes folks to keep doing that behavior, doesn't mess up with the game mechanics too much, and still vibes with the energy of all the things? Like there's absolutely a path forward for that. And we've seen, different projects have done different things between, things around tokens, but I just believe there's a game mechanic somewhere here that is unique and novel, and it may not seem, a lot of the stuff is not going to seem like a revolution. And that's the other thing. All the projects that I work with, my refrain is everything that you ship should at least pass this sniff test. It doesn't have to be a totally revolutionary idea. It just has to pass this sniff test of anyone who's in the space, who's paying attention, goes, oh yeah, all right, that was clever. They pushed the ball forward even a little bit more with the way that they executed that thing, with the artistic approach they took, with something. You if you're actually trying to build something that's enduring, you have to have this mindset in a space with just so much noise and so many scammers and so much bullshit, that you set yourself apart in a big way if you just hold yourselves to that kind of a standard, which again, it's not going to seem, it doesn't need to be some brilliant innovation on a smart contract that does, a million just genius world changing things. It just needs to feel meaningfully better than whatever else is out there, or just be a meaningfully just more thoughtful take, or more interesting, more unique. And having that momentum, as well as developing that culture internally, is where I think the real magic is going to be happening.
Ryan, did you have a question earlier? Sorry, I talked over you.
No, not at all. It was really interesting to hear Alexis's references a couple of times to like community and checking in with community and taking the signal from like real world user community. And that's something that has always attracted us so much to Wizards, is just the kind of rabid nature of the cult, that these people are so into it, and there's so many people from so many walks of life that are into it. And that's like the North that we often seek. Like we're never about the top down, celebrity driven, corporate, centralized version. We're always the grassroots, bottom up, community driven, decentralized version of it. And just like leaning into that and staying true to that as this community unfolds, I think will long term pay really significant dividends for just the quality of the Runeverse overall. And if you guys just keep the faith, I think you'll get there for sure.
I agree, and look, it's going to be this actually vibes a lot with Reddit. Like Reddit's growth was slow and steady, and I think it was definitely not planned. Believe me, if we could have grown as fast as Dig, I would have loved that. But what we got right, actually, in hindsight, was because it was so genuine, because it was so focused on the community, because it was just scrappier. We didn't have the resources. We raised $12,000 to get Reddit started. I mean, we were just we had to listen to our community, because that is just all we had. And I get excited thinking about how focusing it is for you all to have that ear to the community and what they want, especially because building a game like it, I keep saying, like, it is not trivial, right? And the good news is,
Right.
y'all, you've got the right folks around the room, and like actually on the building front, and then a community of wizards who are a cult. I mean, cult is such a loaded word, but it is the wizard cult. It's a
We're okay with
real
it.
cult, and I think that, I don't know how to describe it. Okay, here's what this is. The
Go ahead.
reason the Davids have such an advantage against Goliaths in a pretty unprecedented way is, let's say this was the Final Fantasy game. Let's just say your goal was just work with, was it Squaresoft, Enix, I don't know, whoever owns IP now, to build the on-chain Final Fantasy. You would start day one with a massive, ostensibly, community. But really, you would just have a massive audience because you have a ton of people who all know the game, remember the game, love the game. But with that, they come with a lot of expectations because they're used to playing the AAA titles. They're expecting, like, they're expecting a large corporate entity to, like, hopefully not screw it up and not be doing some like lazy cash grab. And so from day one, that project, in spite of the fact that it has tremendous value of large audience and awareness and just a wealth of artistry and creativity and story and all of that, actually has a disadvantage, because by being focused on building something for a really small obsessive cult, once you start seeing the progress and the momentum, it just hits different. Because now it's like this story, this shared experience of going from 0 to 1. And normally founders feel that. Normally founders and early employees feel that. But now truly the people who actually are doing the building, as well as the people who are actually building the community, who are the members of the community, they're all on that ride. They're all drinking that same punch. And the rate at which that momentum can spin up and start to attract other people, because it's so earnest, is a big deal, right? Even telling a friend, hey, you got to try this new Final Fantasy game, doesn't come with I mean, it could come with a little bit of zeal, but it's mostly based on nostalgia. Recruiting a friend to play with you in a game where you feel like you are a part of building that game truly in every sense of the word it hits totally different. And again, there's not really a precedent for it. The reason why I get to do this job of being an early investor in companies that one day go on to be worth billions is because these teams are able to recruit early employees who just are devoted to the cause, who want to build on something they genuinely care about. And that's part of what makes startups work, because it requires a certain amount of just passion and love and almost borderline delusion to believe. But now you can extend that to the community of people who actually like make it all happen. The audience, that part, that unlock, we're still seeing how that's going to unfold. But I don't know. I think it means in 5 years you could create something that has a kind of fanaticism and zeal and love and maybe even size as something that's been around for decades, right? In a fraction of the time, maybe in 10 years, you're able to scale up to something that has the kind of influence and excitement and interest and whatnot as something that's been around for a decade plus. Because that momentum, because of that's a newness that, like, as a species, we've never really quite been able to feel before. And it's what makes startups work. It's what makes people want to come in and do the work on a thing when their friends and family are like, you really want to be working at that company? Like, why don't you just get a job at Google? Although that is becoming certainly less of a thing. But I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see it unfold, and certainly happy that it's an RPG inspired by a lot of the same artistry that I was as a kid.
Yeah, it's what we call the collaborative legendarium. It's there's not one guy like J.R. Tolkien at the top building this world. The whole universe is being built by our entire community.
Yes, and that means everyone feels like, I mean, it's a gift and a curse, because everyone feels like they have the same thing with Reddit. They feel a sense of ownership in it. And that well-aligned is a force to be reckoned with. There's just nothing else like it. And that's part of the reason why so much of I'd say the last couple of years in Web3 have, I think, come pretty naturally for me, just because I've been primed, right? Everything, I feel like I can see the matrix because everything looks like Reddit, except at a much larger scale, and with much more potential.
On that, how do you see sort of the culture stack playing out? How would you recommend that the team, running the Runiverse, sort of roll out a cadence between different media? So like whether it's shows or print, or we talked about physicals at the top, and then the game, which is obviously the most complex part, and then even evolving the game from like the mini game beta into full MMORPG capabilities. How does that like culture stack look for you in terms of how you should roll that out going forward? Obviously it's difficult to predict, but what do you think?
I would set a minimum level of delight. Like, you have to have some agreed upon sort of minimum viable like level of taste or execution, so that that when something comes out, it's right, it hits and it shows, it helps to create that momentum. And then I would stack that. So if you assume that you're going to get that, then obviously listen to the community. That's a no-brainer. See what they're already vibing on. And then I would prioritize to maximize, sort of like, okay, the same way I would look at like a product roadmap and plotting that out. I would look at P0s where you can ship them pretty quickly relative to others and get a huge return, where return is like community delight. And I would take that feedback from the community. I would rank it based on sort of launches, based on how we can hit in terms of expediency, whatever, quickness to get it out, and sort of awesomeness or wow factor, and rank it that way so that you're creating a cadence. I'll tell you, this is another thing. So much of my time spent with CEOs, and I try to do this internally here at 776. I try to do it at Reddit. So much of my time is spent really talking about creating this cadence of execution, because within an organization, it is the highest leverage thing I have ever seen a company do. So if a company can get good at having ideas, prioritizing them, and then shipping them well, and then just get really good at relentlessly doing that over and over, week to week, fortnight to fortnight, month to month, whatever it is, it creates this amazing virtuous cycle, because internally, it's this momentum. It creates a sort of a drive to execute from the team. Any person who joins sees that day one, and they're like, oh shit, okay, this is a place where people ship. They're getting stuff done. It creates this amazing dynamic for the users, for the community. Because, like, let's face it, most of the stuff that we use every day does not get better. Like, you could drink the same sparkling water every day, and like maybe you get a new flavor every 6 months or a year, but the product's not getting meaningfully better. And software has this really unfair advantage of being able to get meaningfully better. And yet, most of the software that we're just used to every day, like, when was the last time you opened up Chrome and you were like, oh man, Chrome is just 10 times better now, right? And I'm picking on them because it's an established incumbent, but this is the huge advantage the upstarts have. And so you create this cadence where the community starts to just really see, like, not what you say, but what you do. And you continue to under promise, over deliver. You continue to execute. It is addictive. It is a special thing when it happens, because everyone feels that momentum internally and externally, and you can't look away because you just want to see what is going to happen next. And it really just comes back to, like, saying you're going to do things and then doing them well, and then just doing that over and over and over again. And then if you do that consistently for 5 years, like, you'll at the end of that 5 years, you'll look back and be like, oh wow, look how far we've come and look what we've built. Because, sad to say, like, so few companies, projects, whatever you want to call it, actually accomplish that.
How do you see that changing as it's not a company building out these things in a vacuum, but rather an open, decentralized community and a DAO. And like the fact that you have to kind of like build in a glass factory, so to speak, with all of your fans, users, and
Yeah.
shareholders like constantly being able to peer in. How do you
Yeah.
think that experience changes with respect to this building pattern?
I mean, I'm telling you, this aligns so much with my own experience building Reddit. The advantage, so structurally, yes, it was the same. The advantage we had was the people looking were just much smaller and their expectations were much less because it was 2005. It wasn't, social media didn't exist. Like, yeah, we had that going for us. But I think, like a lot of things, you're going to see cultures emerge. You're going to see tools emerge to make this stuff easier. And I just believe you still got to make hard decisions that are in the best interests of the community. And this is the governance part where it's like you get enough goodwill. And I'm not saying playing politics. I'm saying like politics almost in the best, like most idyllic sense of it, where you have a constituency that you're in many ways beholden to. You 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 fill up you 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 fill up the bank account, figuratively speaking, by doing things that make people, so you can almost think of it as like the approval rating, that make things supportive of you and the work that you all are doing, so that when you have to make a hard decision that may not be the most popular but is really in the long-term best interests, people are like, all right, you know what, they're making the right call. And because they have earned the right by sort of having that great approval rating, they have the political currency to make the tough call that's in the best interest. Because I do think there is still some amount of centralization required to do a lot of things well. Now, clearly, this technology has proven there's a fuck ton of things that don't need centralization to be done really well. But creative projects are one of the things where there is absolutely a role for the community to play, but there is also absolutely a role for someone or some group of people at the sort of in service to the long-term best interest of the community to make the decisions to create great output, just because of the nature of the process, all this stuff. I mean, who knows? Technology may find a way to make that more efficient too, but for now, this is one where you just got to fill up the account with goodwill, and then just keep making the best decisions you can for the long term.
Alexis, we've got a couple of cult questions.
Ooh, okay.
Someone from the community was asking, what class? Lorepunk asks, what class do you see yourself as? Do you see yourself as a mage, a warrior, bard, beast?
I always played warrior class or some variant of it. Like the World of Warcraft character that I retired at 60 was a paladin. But I don't know. I have a battle mage that I'm quite fond of, so I'm thinking it could be mage. I I don't want to put too much pressure on you all, but it's funny. I've always felt like, okay, and I'm thinking about EverQuest and World of Warcraft in particular. I've always felt like spell animations in those MMOs were just I get the reasons why, but they when I think of spells, when I think of like the insane summons from like Final Fantasy VII, I like there's something that I really love about just how bonkers you can get with wizardry, and in terms of the graphics, the designs, the things you can actually show. And it always felt like the MMOs that I grew up playing just didn't ever do wizards justice. Like I don't know, it's just not the same. We used to make fun of the like casting animations of EverQuest wizards because it looked so helpless. Anyway, I don't know if hopefully this is being conveyed well. I'll find some animated gifs of it, but it was just really overwhelming. So I
By
want
the
to
way,
play mage, and I want you to.
Wizard 776 is pretty dope. Flaming head. That's a pretty dope one as well.
Another thing, the good news is we do have thousands of warriors entering the world next month, so you'll have a chance to be a warrior class if you'd like.
Okay, no, I don't know if I'm gonna convert. but we'll see. We'll see. Keep my options open.
Matrix, you came up here. Do you have a question?
Yes. Well, hi, Alexis. This is more of
Hello.
a comment I want to say about it, Jace, and
Hey,
I am I am so excited that you are part of the cult. Just the other day, I saw your tweet of tarot cards, and I talked about it in the Discord. I was like, is he getting into wizards? And a couple days later, here you are. And I don't know if anyone else can understand how exciting this is for me. As an Armenian person, I've always been happy that you're a big role model in Web3. And I just want to say hello and welcome. And this is by far the best community in this space. And I've known Elf for a long time, but that's how I got into Wizards originally. But it's because I know how fucking brilliant he is, and it's so exciting. I also wanted to say this to Elf, seeing all of your creations come to life is just so fucking magical. Your brain is amazing. And
Stop.
Huge
Kick her off the
props to
stage.
Alf for Chaos Crimea. Massive props on Chaos Crimea. That thing is sick.
But anyway, just welcome, Alexis, and I'm really excited that you're here.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dota, are there any other questions in the Discord?
The only other that I want to make there is, I forgot to mention this. So super, super key. This is a pro tip. The biggest vulnerability in Web3 culture and community right now is the fact that the most optimistic numbers I've seen are 25% women, 30% women. Y'all know half the human population are women. If you didn't, newsflash. And when it comes to community, the thing that my favorite stat, despite Reddit being pretty heavily skewed towards men, when we surveyed our moderators, that is the people who were doing all the community building on Reddit, they were disproportionately women. And I really think this missing piece is going to get fit in the next couple of years. But the communities and the groups and the organizations that proactively go out to recruit, to create those spaces, are going to have such an unfair advantage, because I'm sure some PhD has written all kinds of papers on it, but at the end of the day, there is an unfair advantage that women, at least as I have seen, have when it comes to community building, online or offline, doesn't matter. Even on places like Reddit, where you'd think they might not have a great time, this is such an opportunity. And so I think, this is one thing we weren't able. Look, I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons with a single girl. I would have loved to. I really would have loved to. It would have made middle school and high school a lot more fun. But at the end of the day, it's in everyone's best interest to have that experience. And I think even just from a selfish, how do you make this cult as successful as possible? It's going to be bringing women along, and I know it's great to already see the activity. That was one of the reasons why we were excited to really dive in. But
I can tell you, we've got some amazing women wizards in our cult. And one of them, in fact, sings songs regularly on our spaces. Margaret, do you want to say something?
Hi, thank you very much, Dada and Elf, and welcome everyone, and welcome Alexis. A salute to you from another paladin. I have the honor to be one of the recipients of the honorary warriors, as does Natrix. And we're really glad to have you here. And I wanted to ask you if you'd like to hear a song that I've written about the release of the first beast.
Yes.
So, yeah, Margaret,
fan music, I love it.
We would love to end with your song. I think Chainlink Bull had a question, but he
stepped
just
down.
Darn it, Chainlink Bull! I wanted to hear your question.
But
ask me on Twitter.
But we can close out with Margaret's song. I think that's a perfect way to tie it up.
For sure. Yeah, and I just want to say, maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't think any other community has people who sing as much as we have
I
in
love it.
ours. so,
And I,
so yeah, I guess Margaret, please grace our ears with your new song.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and this is a real honor. I can't think of anyone better to join us than Alexis. This song is called Chimera, and it's about the release of the first beast. I had been training my mind. Wow. It's the little things that happen in the middle of the night. Go on, they say love is blind. Wow. It's the little things that happen in the middle of the night. Roam far, following the guiding star, to the gate among the hills, heavy with locks, nobody's seen it before. Gather, all who hold a key or spell, nobody can really tell who lies in wait past the door. And I wonder why. And I wonder why. Everyone started to talk. Wow. Of the little things that happened in the middle of the night. Sage said to wait for the block. Well, for the little things that happen in the middle of the night. Suddenly, light shone from the golden keys, spells shot out so bright and clean, and the locks fallen free one by one. Turn again, door opens a distant scene, chimera with eyes so mean, stepping out from the light of the strange sun. And I wonder why. And I wonder why. Oh, I had been training my mind. Well. It's the little things that happen in the middle of the night. Gate so's quickly behind. Well. It's the little things that happen. Oh, beast full of magic and might, flew he higher than the eyes could see, dignified and strange and free. His call echoed straight to the ground, drums and reeds in the valleys answering, longing for the strangest thing, when all of his spawn would be found. And I wonder why. And I wonder why. Oh, it's the little things that happen in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. Oh, it's the little things that happen in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Well done, Margaret.
And I want to say to you, Alexis, that is just one facet of the beautiful crystal of our community. That the writing, the art, the storytelling, the music, the video, everything that's happening in this community is beautiful. And the inspiration that flows through me today is from that community, and I have so much hope for our future.
What do you guys think of
Margaret.
putting that song in the lore of Chaos Crimea?
I love it.
Hell yeah.
Let's do it. Done.
Alexis, thank you so much for coming to be with us today. It was really wonderful.
My pleasure.
To talk
Thanks.
to you.
So
and
don't
hear
be
your
strangers
thoughts.
on Twitter. Get at me.
All right.
Thank you so much, Alexis. And
care,
thank you, everybody. It's been a really great show. This has been Elf, Dota, Ryan, Alexis, Margaret, Bearsnake, Natrix, and the entire Forgotten Runes Wizards cult, channeling out from the Quantum Downs. GN, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.